Hey everybody, this is Liz from Northern Bell Farms, and we finally have all the stuff to start making grain spawn. We decided that me and my son have gone out foraging for mushrooms. We've been learning a lot about mushrooms, so we're going to try growing our own. Now, we don't have all the fancy laminar flow hoods and the grow rooms and the air circulation systems that pump the humidity and moisture into the air. But we're still going to try and do it low maintenance anyways. I've seen a few people, watched a few different people who said that you don't have to have it high tech to be able to grow mushrooms. So we're going to try. I have these 5 different kinds. I ordered these from Southwest Mushroom. He is very knowledgeable. He has a YouTube channel. There's another guy on here. I'll have to link him in the bottom, but he also sells these. These are like a mushroom spore soup. They take the mushroom caps and the spores from the mushrooms and they put it into a mushroom broth, and it's another way of making more mushrooms, I guess. We have a pink oyster one, which is I think the one that I'm most excited about. Shiitake, which I'm least excited about because shiitake is a harder one to grow. Along with, in my reading, I found out that the pepino mushroom is a harder one to grow because it needs cold temperatures. It said between 50 and 60 degrees for fruiting, and it likes 90% humidity. So I have to try and keep the humidity up and the room cold, which won't be too hard because our house stays between 65 and 70 degrees, so it won't be too much hotter than it wants. The humidity, just this time of year, it's more dry, so, but it's still pretty humid. It's probably closer to 70 though. We have a king trumpet, which is the largest of the oyster mushroom species. These store really well and should be a good one for marketing. And a white oyster, which is just a regular oyster mushroom. I also want to get some golden oyster, some blue oyster. I want to get some lion's mane and a couple other ones, but we're going to start with these and we're going to see how well these do, and then maybe if I can sell some of these, then I can get some new mushrooms and grow some other kinds. So you need your spawn broth. I don't really know what it's called, to make grain spawn. Now you can buy just grain spawn that's already made for you. It usually comes in a bag with the substrate, and then when you get it that way, you just cut the bag open and you put it wherever you're going to grow it, and the air will be fruiting. So we're doing the step before most people get a mushroom grow kit or the actual substrate bag. This is a step before that. So this is just going into it a little more. This is rye grain. I got this bag. It's a 25-pound bag from Amazon. There was a couple other places that were a little more expensive. Perfect Fungi had some, but in my research I found that rye grain was the best grain for grain spawn. I had a couple other kinds that said that they'll work, but that the recommended grain was rye. So either rye, wheat, winterberry rye, any kind of rye. And what we're going to do is I have these separated into the 3. When you soak your grain, it's going to expand, of course. So it's going to be about 3 times the amount. If I fill this jar and then soak it in the bucket, it's going to be 3. It's going to fill 3 of these jars. So I separated all the jars that I had to work with into 3 separate piles. So that way I only have to fill up 1 set of jars and then dump them into a large 5-gallon bucket. And then once all the grain is dumped into here, after I fill 1 set of jars, I'm going to fill it up with warm water, not hot, just warm water from the sink. And I'm going to put the lid on and I'm going to soak it for 12 to 18 to possibly 24 hours, depending on how lazy I am. And then tomorrow I will, of course, make another video, either separate or add it on to this video, of the next step. But so that is what I'm going to do right now. I'm making grain spawn, so I am by no means an expert. I just watched a bunch of videos on YouTube and said I can do that too. So if you have constructive criticism, I'd love to hear it. If this is something you've done before and know a better way or have a different way that you want to comment on, I'd love to know. If you have something mean to say, you can just go away. And I'm just doing as I've learned. I watched a bunch of videos by a bunch of different people. I have other people that I can recommend. North Star Spawn, North Spore. They're awesome. Southwest Mushroom is awesome, and most of the best how-to videos I've seen are from FreshCap Mushroom. He has a lot of good information, a lot of different ways to do things. We're actually going to try 2 different ways. We're going to try the bucket method, and then whatever's left in grain spawn, I'm going to try to do the bags, where you fill up the bags with the substrate. Substrate is what you put the grain spawn into, because this is just basically breeding mushroom mycelium into something that you can use. So after we do the mycelium broth into here, Chris is going to drill 2 holes in the top. We need one for air, which is going to have a piece of like pillow cushion inside shoved in it so that air can go through but no particles can go through. And then we're going to use this. It is a high temperature gasket sealer. We're going to use this to put on the other hole, and what we need to do is, after he drills a hole, we put this gasket sealer on. The bags came like this with the sterile needle and the mushroom mycelium broth. So we're going to open that up and put it on, and then we're going to squeeze some of this into the jar. Now we need that high temperature gasket sealer, so that way when we pull it out, there is no hole left in the top. So that way, when we put them in the pressure canner to sterilize the grain and make sure that, you know, there's no mold, spores, or anything else on our grain that we don't want there, we'll sterilize it and seal it so that nothing can get in. So here's the lid for the grain spawn. You have a 1/4-inch hole in the middle that we're going to stuff with pillow stuffing for an air vent for the mycelium to breathe and grow. And then we have a much smaller hole near the edge, which we're going to apply this high heat silicone to. It's called a self-healing injection port. So we put the silicone over that hole. And now we can stick, we're going to let it dry for a couple hours, but now the needle in, and we can inoculate the green spawn, and it won't let anything else in. So the needle will go through the injection port, and then it will self-heal when we pull the needle out. The gasket sealer will still stay sealed, so we can get to our sterilized grain and inoculate it with the mycelium. Okay, everybody, please excuse my sink mess. I am not doing dishes today. It's my first day without coffee. I'm going to try and go without coffee or energy drinks for a while and see if that's why my stomach's been hurting, but I'm not dealing with this. So, we have our bucket of grain spawn, which is, it was about half my bag, so it's probably about 12 to 14 pounds of grain spawn. It's been soaking, oh, it smells delicious, like bread. It's been soaking overnight. You want to soak it for 12, 18, not more than 24 hours. It's been about 24 hours now. So now to finish the process, to soften it up a little more, make sure it's fully hydrated, we're going to put it in this pot to simmer for about 15 minutes. This is a pot we had bought to scald our chickens in to be able to pluck their feathers off. So it's the biggest pot we have, and it just barely fits it all, actually. Going to rinse out this bucket. Okay, so our pot's filled with water, and we're gonna bring it over to the stove and simmer it for 15 minutes. Now, you don't want to bring it to a hard boil because it'll end up cracking or turning your grain to mush, but you do want to simmer it for about 15 minutes to cook it. Like I said, make sure it's fully hydrated. This only needs to simmer for 15 minutes. I had to wait 40 minutes to get to simmer because it's such a big pot with so much water and grain in it. So if you're doing less, you just warm it up until it starts to simmer. You don't want a hard boil because you don't want to bust the grains and make them all mushy and gross. You just want to get them warmed up and make sure they've absorbed enough water. So this has just started to simmer like this. So we're going to let it simmer for 15 minutes, and then we have cleaned out the sink. Oh, jerks. I did have the sink cleaned out. Okay, I'm going to have to wash out the sink again. But I'm going to splash some bleach in there, scrub it around, and then put this drain back in there. And then I am going to just take the grain and dump it in there. We want the outside of the grain to be dry, so we're going to dump it in the sink and wait about an hour or so. And we've sterilized the sink as much as it's going to be, so we're going to dump it, let it dry for about an hour. And then we're going to scoop it into our pre-made jars of the self-peeling injection port and the pillow stuffing that we shoved in so that air can get in but no contaminants can get into the jar. So we're going to fill it about 3/4 of the way up with the grain, seal it, and then we should be ready to go. The jar is about 3/4 of the way full, and then we are going to set the lids and put the rings on, and then we're going to take them all and seal them with a small piece of tin foil so that the water from the pressure canner doesn't drip back in. So we seal them like this, just covering the lid. I have the pressure canner over here with about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of water in it. And we're going to set all of the jars in here. We need to pressure can them to sterilize the grain completely with 15 psi, which is on a regular pressure canner, all three, the middle weight and then each outside weight. So it's the whole weighted set on top of the lid for 90 minutes. So you're going to turn it on, you're going to bring it up, you're going to wait till you start to hear the chick, 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 chick. And once it starts rocking, then you set a timer for 90 minutes of the 15 psi pressure to sterilize your grain.
It's a 16 buff in the dark. It's a 16 buff in the dark.
Okay, so next step. I already did the pink oyster mushrooms last night because they're a warm climate mushroom, so I thought that they might enjoy it if I did it while the grain spawn was still warm, not like hot, but still warm. So this is white elm or white oyster. Here is the mycelium broth. It comes with a sterile needle. So you open it up. Let's see, you use the end of the, actually maybe it's, yeah, you use the cap to unscrew this like that. And then you put the needle on the squeeze. And now each one of these jars only needs about one, if it'll focus, no, about 1 to 2 cc's, maybe this is, of, oh, milliliters. But I thought that was a lot more. Anyways, it only needs 1 to 2 from this. So that means 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we'll just probably, that would only leave me with 1 dose left. So we'll just find out whichever one has more, or we'll put a little more than 2 in each. That way I have, so we go through the self-healing injection port and we squeeze in a little. We're going to squeeze here. We're going to turn it this way a little, squeeze here. And that's 10, so that's 2 and a little more. And that is the inoculated grain spawn in this jar now. So we're going to do that with all of these jars. Sometimes you have to poke a couple times to find out where that hole is. Get it in the jar and squeeze 2.
It's a 16 buff in the dark. It's a 16 buff in the dark. It's a 16.
So our pink oyster is in my room. It likes it hot and humid. The white oyster and king trumpet are a little more forgiving. They like it in between, 50 and 70 degrees, and humidity at a decent level, probably like 60% humidity or so. Our shiitakes are going to be a little bit more, they're going to have to be more on some wood substrate. We'll talk about substrate in the next video. This is just the grain spawn, and then inoculating our substrate will be a second video. But the shiitake is going to need more wood than straw or anything else to grow on because it's a little more picky. And the pepino is one of our pickiest. This is the last one we're doing. It is, likes it between 50 and 60 degrees, so it likes it on the cooler side, but it also likes high humidity. Now, that's not too much of a problem here usually, because it's always humid here, but I think the greenhouse is where they're going to have to go. So that way I can keep them cooler and the humidity high, because there's all the plants in the greenhouse. So you want to do that one? Okay.